portfolio. Okay, so this topic will cover your process control. Now, what is process control about? Okay. Process control within your business. What does process control mean? Obviously, here process is your business. So when you say business, if you see this PPT, within this, say within a company, you can have various subsidiaries or various organization unit, and there are a lot of business processes which runs your overall business. Like we have sales, marketing, HR. You can have different areas of uh, sales as well. Okay. Then within manufacturing, how do you procure an item? You'll have procurement. Okay. How do you actually order? That's the procurement part. How do you deal with your suppliers? Okay. When you're procuring, whether you're procuring from suppliers, whether are you going through a quotation? Is there a formal tenders? So a business involves a lot of business processes. So mainly business processes, if you have heard of, especially in testing, you will have lot of process-wise testing also. If you have done any of those, like say O2C, which is order to cash. Okay, then R2R. Okay, record to report. Okay, P2P, procure to pay. So these are the various business processes that you have within any business. Okay, it can be manufacturing, healthcare, semiconductor, defense, whatever be your business, you will have certain business processes. Okay. Like say within sales, you have sales order which needs to be raised. You do a lot of shipping and delivery in any of the sales process. There is billing for any of the sales that you make. For example, if you take any of the large or even small e-commerce company, we are buying an online item over online portal. Okay, there will be invoice which is raised. So if you just segregate the sales part, these are all the activities which which you will have within the sales. So these are nothing but your business process. Okay, so a company will have a lot of business processes. This is a uh, basically purchase, procure to pay kind of environment where you have purchase requisition. Initially, purchase requisition being raised. Upon approval, you have purchase order. Okay. The complete P2P, procure to pay. How will you procure an item? It can be raw material for your company, and finally pay the vendor. Okay. It's a whole P2P process. Now, where GRC process control comes into play, and why it is so much, why there is so much demand in the market for the module. See, all these activities, if you are doing sales activity, you have SAP, SD. If you have, if you are doing metal management related activity, you have MM. Likewise, there are various modules. Now, for all these processes, there are some checks and balances which needs to be done. So, in larger organization, what we do is there are a lot of teams working on those checks and balances. Like, for example, in this process of procure to pay, okay, are you aware of this business process from business point of view, Anurag?
Yeah, not much. Really.
Yeah, because these are mostly functional, but still people who are in testing, many of them they will be doing process based testing also. Okay. So fine. So these are the like functional areas. So being a process control consultant, or in order to learn, it's not mandatory to know all the business processes, because there will be n number of business processes, and for every company they will be customizing also according to their way. So procure to pay, the way it works in one company might work a little different way, but more or less this is the cycle. Now where GRC process control comes into play, you might have a process, and within that business process there are a lot of areas where you might not have proper control. Okay, where there can be issue of fraud. Okay, there can be issue of some malicious intent within your business. Now what are the areas? See, procure to pay is having certain risk. So these are the risk areas. When you raise a purchase requisition, and then for every requisition there is a purchase order being raised, somebody does the approval. So whether the approval is proper, yes or no. how it can be checked. Now for a smaller company, it can be done manually, but think about a very large company where you have millions of purchase orders being raised. For example, if you think of any of the large e-commerce company, say, so think about the number of orders they receive per day. Okay, not even per day, say per hour or even minute. Okay, thousands and lakhs of order for a particular country. So it's all managed through ERP systems. Okay, it can be SAP or it can be some other ERP system. So when it is managed through ERP and you have all these various areas where there can be some issues. What can be the issue? Whether the approval is proper. Okay, is the right approval done? Yes or no? Okay, when you do a quotation analysis, whether the quotation is proper or not. For say every purchase order you are procuring some item from a vendor. For example, say you are a car manufacturing company. So car manufacturing company, mostly they will not manufacture tires for the car. So mostly the tires they will procure from a third party company. And there are many tire companies. So how will you ensure that you are getting tires at the lowest cost and at a good quality one? Not only cost is a factor, even quality is also a factor. So there is a quotation analysis which needs to be done properly. Okay, now think about what kind of fraud there can be. Say there is a person who is part of the procurement team. Okay, he procures whatever item is required. Okay, the boss for the procurement team. So if there is no proper check here, the person can favor a particular vendor. Okay, and maybe he is taking bribe for that, so that can be a risk. Maybe he is getting things at a very low price, but the quality is not right. Okay, so these are the various areas where there can be risk. Okay, you got a good receipt. For a good receipt, you are making payment to the vendor. But whether the payment is cross-checked or not, actually on papers you have got a good receipt, but whether the goods are actually received or not, this is a very common area of fraud or common area of error. Many a time what companies do, because all these payments and everything is online nowadays through system. So say you are receiving raw material at a huge amount, and to some vendor who is a daily vendor, maybe you have done a double payment. So suppose the quantity is 100 and you are supposed to pay 1000 rupees, instead you have paid 2000 rupees. There is a double payment which has been issued. So whether there is a proper verification of the invoice or not, that means for every invoice is there a corresponding payment? Is it 1:1 or 1:many? Okay, so these are the financial misstatement or fraud. Okay. So see, the same thing is explained here. Purchase related approval risk. Okay. There can be vendor management where you are not able to properly manage the vendors. Inventory, the amount, the commodities that you are getting, whether you are able to store it properly, if you are storing, whether the numbers are correct. That means, say you have procured 100 tires and at the storage facility only 90 is stored and 10 are sold outside by the storage people, and they are showing that there is 100 which is reported, but actually there is 10 which is missing. Okay, so generally you will think, okay, we can easily figure out 10 is missing within SAP system, but think about a larger company which is storing huge amount of inventory, or they have a huge amount of inventory. Think of FMCG company, food, fast moving goods company. Okay, company which is manufacturing biscuits, okay, various edible items. So their inventory will be huge. Okay, plus at multiple location, multiple stores, and they are distributing across a country. So without a proper online mechanism or ERP system, it's very difficult to manage your inventory. So what can be the risk? It can be inventory risk, invoice related verification risk, duplicity of payments, payments not made properly. If you do not pay, the vendor can possibly go for a warning and later on sue the company for that. So what are the checks that can be done? We have to provide some control. So a lot of controls can be provided through process control. And what are the controls which are there? We have SOD, which is segregation of duty. So SOD control can be applied here. Master data for this, vendor policy as well, configuration control and transaction control. Okay. So all this control we will see in detail. But let me tell you about one control just to give you a hint. SOD. SOD stands for your segregation or segregation of duty, or even called as separation of duty. Now through segregation of duty, what we can do is we can mitigate this risk or remediate. Remediate is resolving the risk. Mitigation is you know that there is a risk, but still there is a control to check that risk. You totally do not eliminate the risk, you actually control that risk. So for any approval related issues, we can have a SOD control. How SOD control will work? Let us go back to the previous slide. If you see here, you raise a purchase requisition and somebody approves it. Okay. So that person will have the authority to raise the purchase order. So in between, you can have 2 to 3 people who will be doing the job. One particular person is raising the purchase request, another person is approving. Okay, then the same thing is getting converted to purchase order. So there are 2 to 3 people involved. You are separating the duties. If it is a single person who does PR, PO, approval and everything, he or she can mess up in this area. So what you will do, you will divide this job into 2 to 3 people. You're separating or segregating the duties. So that is how you are eliminating the risk. Because if this person does this job, the same thing will be verified here. And even at an approval level, we can have multiple approvals. Say for approval till $10,000, okay, of purchase requisition, I have a senior guy who is approving it within my team. Anything from $10,000 to $50,000, I have a department head, okay, who is approving it. Anything above $50,000, there's a director who is approving that, or there can be multiple checks. Okay, so you are applying a segregation of duty control to eliminate this risk. Okay, this risk will be totally eliminated. So somebody who is raising a purchase order will never be able to approve it. So purchase order raising, one guy will do. Approval of the purchase order will be done by another person. So that's a segregation of duty control, you can say. Okay. So up till now, any doubt or any question? Because see, this area will be new for you, but it's very upcoming, and there are a lot of things to learn. And more you work into the SAP functional area and business, so you'll be able to relate the risk and map into process control. So the job of process control is basically to manage the risk within your business processes or to apply control, process control. So you apply controls within your business processes. Okay. Any doubts so far? Alright. Okay, that's fine. So these are the risks that we have, and along with this, these are the various control. Okay. Coming to the next slide, this is about control management, and when we apply controls, okay, fine. According to the business processes, we are applying controls, but there is another area of control management. Why exactly it is required? Okay, maybe you can say my business is having a lot of risk, but still I depend on my employee and I do not require internal controls or any control management. I will not apply any software or I will not apply any business process for my company because I do not require it. But there are a lot of regulation and compliance which government and various organization imposes within the business, which needs to be uh, adhered. Okay. For example, if you are a company in US, okay, any company which is listed in US, like New York Stock Exchange, say, you have to adhere to a compliance regulation called SOX, okay, which stands for your Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Okay. Similarly, if you are a company in Japan and it is about to be listed or is already listed, okay, I think in Japan the stock exchange is Nikkei, so it has to be JSOX compliant. Similarly, for India also, you have a separate regulation for any of the company which is listed. When I say listed, companies which are there, you can buy shares for that company, public companies, okay, public limited companies. Uh, the companies which are listed in new NSE and BSE. Okay, so they have to comply by various regulations of SEBI, which is one of the financial and stock market regulators within India. So for that, we have a clause called Clause 49 within India, which is quite similar to your SOX. So these are the clauses which will actually imply within the company. You have to get yourself compliant, then only it can be listed or it can be continue to be listed. Okay. So if we do not comply, what will happen? So you have to comply because there are audits which takes place. So there are two kinds of audit. One is internal audit that you do within the company with your people, with your audit team, and there are external audits. So every company with certain business transaction, most of the companies have to do audit in every financial year. Even there are quarter on quarter audit, but statutory audit is like every financial year. So at the time of audit, you have to comply with various regulations. So GRC process controls enable you to have a proper regulation and compliance throughout your business. So that is one of the main criteria or main advantage of having your GRC process control. Okay, so it's not only control establishment or internal controls, it is also related to your compliance. Okay, the within GRC you have governance, risk, and compliance. Okay, so when you say governance, governance of your overall business, that is the business process and all these things. Risk, so you have just seen one of the risk, SOD risk. So GRC, so risk management, yes, that is one of the part. C is your compliance part. So these are the area like SOX, FDA. FDA is again a German compliance regulation, SOX, Clause 49, and there are various other regulations. Like if you are a chemical company, there are separate regulations. Okay. If you are a utility company like electricity or gas, okay, so you have to imply to particular regulations. So those regulatory norms are very important. So how do you manage those regulatory norms for your ERP within your system? If you have PC, then it is easier to do all these activities. Okay, risk control, control documentation, monitoring of those control. Okay, overall managing the complete business process and control environment. Okay. So if you do not have a automated software or software which does all this control and testing of those control managing, then what is the option? Obviously, if you do not have a software for it, maybe you are running SAP, you will go for a manual control testing. Okay, which will not have any workflow. There are a lot of documentation, a lot of people will be involved. So what can be a manual testing? For example, say you are doing some sort of testing. That testing is related to the T code or probably functioning of the program, okay, or functioning of the proper ABAP screens which are coming up. Say you are running a custom transaction and whether it's giving you a required result or not. So you'll do those checks. Okay, you'll check whether that program works properly, whether the output is right or not. Similarly, right. So similarly, within your business, suppose I do not have process control and I do not have segregation of duties. So what I will do monthly or quarterly, I will check for all the purchase order which is raised and I'll check for anomalies, any anomalies. Is there any purchase order which was not approved properly? okay, or it's approved by a wrong person, or say there is some issue in the approval. But do you think all the all the purchase order can be checked? Never, because day in and day out you'll be having so many invoices. So when you do an audit, you never do audit for all of the data. You just take a sample of the data. Okay, so suppose an e-commerce company is receiving 1 million order per month. So in order to audit that, maybe I will do 4 to 5,000 checks for every purchase order. Okay. So that will be a manual testing of the control. So I have a control which is tested manually. The control is, say the name of the control is checking process, checking POs, checking purchase order. So every month on month, what you do, there is a team of 40-50 guys who will be picking up randomly or through some algorithm 5,000 to 10,000 purchase order out of a million purchase order, and then they will check whether it was raised properly, whether there was proper approval, is there any issue with the purchase order, whether the data was filled properly. So that's a complete manual effort. Okay, and whatever testing you have done, that have to be documented, it have to be stored, so that next time when you are searching, maybe after 6 months there is an audit and there is some issue with some purchase order, so at least you can revert back to your previous testing data and say no, we have tested, okay, and it was fine at that point in time. So if you do not have a software, obviously you have to go through a manual effort. So even if you have SAP running and you do not have process control, companies have established their own controls, whether it's manual, in order to satisfy your internal controls, in order to satisfy the auditors and regulators. Okay. So what is the edge of process control? It will obviously minimize the effort. You will require less people to do the job, and a lot of business process will be control testing, and those things can be automatic. Okay. So this would be the much better benefit. Okay. So there are a lot of theory things involved. Let me directly get into the uh, visual part of your process control. So this is one of the architecture, basic GRC or PC architecture. So I'll show you the screens. So I have snapshots for that. Right now I do not have the server which is connected. So even if we connect to the server and I show you the screen, it will not mean much sense, because uh, you don't have the background of AC or any other GRC tool. Okay. So let me show you here itself with the screens. Okay, so this is a basic SAP screen. It's not a GRC screen. So this says about how to set up the authorizations, okay, within GRC process control. Then we will do a lot of configuration in the SPRO image part. Okay, this is the core GRC area. So transaction for that is, if you have ever used, it's SPRO, okay, which is the SAP image. So any of the functional configurations is done in your SPRO. So you can key in / and SPRO in any of the SAP system, and you will go to the SAP image. So within SAP image, if you have say finance, okay, or or HR, or say GRC, so you will have all the uh, table related data and all the activation for those data present where you need to do the configuration. So this is basically the backend configuration screen. Okay. So from 10.0 and 10.1, all the configurations are done from SPRO. Whereas in the older version of GRC, it was not done from SPRO. It was from because it was a Java stack, so that was done from a browser pointer. So these are some of the configuration areas. This is basically for your setting up of various regulation related data. Okay. So it's SOX and FDA. SOX is your Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So most of the companies, if you see, who have those who have established PC and the projects which are running, mostly they will go for adhering your SOX for being SOX compliant. So SOX is a primary compliance initiative, okay, in any of the companies. So if you talk about process control, the first priority of any company is to be SOX compliant, and specifically for the US based company, because for them SOX is the main fundamental compliance regulation which have to be green. Okay, so it's very stringent because companies pay a lot of penalty for not being compliant. Okay. So these are the screens from the SAP side, SAP backend configuration screens. Okay, those we will see. Let me show you the GRC screen. So this is something like a GRC screen where you do a regulation setup. This is one of the activities. Okay. This is one of the screens. Maybe it's not exactly visible. This is from a 10.0 screen. Okay, 10.0. So 10.0 and 10.1 looks pretty much similar. Okay, these are your front end screens, NWBC screens. So doing the configuration for your policy. Okay, how will you create a plan for that within GRC PC? So these are the screens for your PC. So the complete curriculum that I have shown you. So we will go through all the areas of curriculum. So which is a standard curriculum for PC. Generally within PC, most of the companies will not have couple of functionalities like CLM, which is a functionality many companies will not have. Okay, then the policy management, maybe they will not do policy management through PC. Many a time they use SharePoint for their policy management. All the policy related data will be stored and managed through a SharePoint portal. So SharePoint is a software from Microsoft. Okay. So that is also very popular, mostly for policy management, document storage, portal related. It's a portal related software. But if you are doing policy management within SAP, it will be easier if you have SAP and if you're running PC, because you can share the hierarchy of the organization. Okay, so like in larger organization, you'll find that at a higher level there is a group or the main or mother organization, and they will have a lot of subsidiaries. Like every country you open up your company, you will have company by that country name. For example, say any XYZ company, if it is there in India, it will be XYZ India Private Limited. Okay, just name any company. So if it is opened in India, it will be India Private Limited. So it have to be registered within India. Okay, and you will find companies in US, it will be like XYZ Inc. Incorporate. Okay, that is one way of registering. Okay. So whichever country you open up, it becomes like a subsidiary of your parent company. Okay, if you see any IT or any company manufacturing IT product within India, the full name of that company will be India Private Limited. Okay, and if the same company is listed in India's stock exchange, then it will just be limited, not private limited, because then it is not a private company, it becomes a public listed company. So what's a public listed company? The company for which you can buy share, as simple as that. Okay, so can you name me any public company? Public doesn't mean private, and public doesn't mean government also. Okay, ACC I'm not aware of, but any large company, say Reliance. Okay, so we would say Reliance is a private company. Okay, fine, there are owners for that company, but it's not exactly private because it is listed, and the owners of Reliance is not 2-3 people or the Ambanis. The owners of Reliance is a lot of other people, like people who have purchased. If you purchase one share of Reliance, you are also a owner of a small portion of that company, because that company is listed in Indian Stock Exchange and you can purchase the share of that company. So whenever a company is listed, before getting listed, there are a lot of audits and a lot of checks those need to be taken care of, because how the public will come to know whether that company is fine to get listed. Like if I'm buying a share, okay, of 100 rupees, whether it is worth 100 rupees or not. Okay, so who will determine the value? It's not just a random number. Okay, depending on the audit, the strength of the company, the profit, how they operate, the operating, lot of factors. Depending on those factors, the value it gets initially listed. Okay, so in order to have a solid foundation and to run a transparent mechanism within your stocks or within any of the company, you have to comply with that country's norm. So each and every country will have their kind of similar kind of norm. So, but think about a global company, the hierarchy that they have. Say, for example, any multinational company having branches in 100 plus countries. So, for every country, there will be different hierarchies. Okay, and maybe their subsidiaries. Okay, say, for example, Tata. Tata is a group. Now, there is Tata working in software. They are working in FMCG, they are working in any, you can say any business. There are so many companies. Motors, okay, Tata Motors, Tata Communication, Tata LXC, Tata Consultancy Services, so many. So all these are part of Tata Group, but they are separately a different entity again. Okay. So if you need the whole process to be controlled within that group, okay, you will need to build a hierarchy. Technically, within the system also you will build a hierarchy. Okay, like the risk which is there in one of the areas in a semiconductor company will not be the similar risk in a service company. Okay, but if it is similar, you can share that risk or you can share that control. Okay, so if you have process control in place, there are a lot of sharing of controls which you can do, so a lot of duplication of work is eliminated. Okay, and obviously you will require less manpower. Okay. Now, from business side, what is the benefit? Why should I use process control? That can be a very common question. Okay. What is the use of process control? What is the use? Okay, fine. I have explained what is the use. But what is the importance and why company will invest in a process control? Okay. First thing, if you do not have proper control in place, there are high chances of fraud. And even if you have control, there will be fraud, there will be chances of fraud, but at least you can control at some level. Okay, and whenever some fraud or malicious activity, or it can be due to error, issue, human error or system error also, but there is some mechanism to do the control. Then the third thing will be because of regulations or the compliance. Okay, and overall your business process, managing the business process. So from return of investment point of view, if you implement the software, what is the return of investment? Obviously, if you have people who are doing control testing, so that can be reduced because manual control testing will be less. Your business will be more robust, okay, more controlled because there will be a lot of internal controls through which you will be able to manage your business in a much better way, and obviously adhering to your regulation, country specific regulation, even international regulation also. And when you are doing cross country trade or cross border trade, you need to take care of a lot of international, say custom related. Okay, any company, company manufacturing vehicles, you are importing vehicles or maybe you are importing some parts, exporting vehicles. Okay, or if it is a company with alliance, say uh, Maruti and Suzuki, okay, then there are a lot of such process related things which is involved. Any of the larger company, they will have all this regulatory and control related requirement. So after implementing the PC, you can automatize a lot of those things. Your data is centralized, manual effort is reduced, and you have overall better control. Okay. And obviously you are reducing the fraud related things, which is quite evident because through fraud, most of the business loses a huge amount of money. Fraud is not only there in financial institution, it's there in all of the institution, whatever it is. So fraud is not pertaining to only banking. Okay, that it's bank and money will get stolen, hackers, this and that. not only that, fraud can happen in many different ways. Okay? Not only fraud, it can be human error also. Okay. So you have made there was one issue with one of my client where there was double payment or multiple payment which got issued for a single day, okay, for a quarter. It was a quarterly payment, and it got issued two times. But the amount was so huge that say you're paying all the vendors for one quarter at the end of the quarter. It's like a quarter closing for that company, and you're paying in millions in euro, and that is just double payment for all the suppliers because of a issue which was done of some scripting issue which happened. So how basically it's process of the payment is through batch jobs. Okay. So in those scripting, what happened that payment was done twice. So from bank, the money got credited to all the supplier account. So every company has a cash balance in their company accounts. So the company got call from a bank saying that your balance is at a very because they will keep on operating with a current account, huge volume-wise current account, with at least a substantial balance. Okay, so that balance became very low, at a dangerously level low. So why it happens? It was a huge financial impact because once the money is remitted, to get back those money, at least it will take time. So each second or each minute you are losing interest in that way. So that was a financial impact for them. Okay. So there can be a lot of issues. It was not a fraud, but it was kind of an error. But that error happened globally, and it was a huge loss for the company because the amount of time the money is not with you, you're losing a huge amount of interest. That is one, and overall the complete effort that goes behind again getting the money, balancing the credit and debit things. A major flaw, major flaw. So there can be a lot of issues. That is why process control is much beneficial. And the latest module that we have, latest version 10.1, is really upcoming with any of the like other GRC areas like access control and disk management. Okay. So I think for today's session as a demo session, it would be more than sufficient because I would have gone to the system and like shown you the same screens, but I thought like you have some background of access control or security, but even if it's not there, it's fine. So we have to go through some initial base and then jump into the direct configuration because right now it will be not of much value, right? So any questions for me, Anurag?
Nothing. It was fine. Like as a introductory class, it was went well. And I do need some help on this different business process, like this O2C, P2P, and all.
Right.
So I mean, yeah. So in case,
For those, I can share some material, and even if you are searching over net, you will have more than sufficient material. So business processes, like there are n number of business processes. So process control is an independent module. What it will do, it will establish control within your business process. So maybe you can come across through a new business process, and then you have to identify where the risks are and then apply proper controls. But if you have more and more understanding of different business processes, it is beneficial for you. So basically I might be knowing couple of business processes but not all the business processes. It's impossible for anybody to know all the business processes because it is specific to the business again. Okay? But yes, with the basic ones which is there in the market, obviously I can help you with, and I can share some documents which you can go through before starting up with the technical part. Okay, so although there is some dependency, but module itself is different. It's a technology module. Okay, not a it's like techno-functional kind of. So no techno-functional, not in a sense you do not have any coding here. Okay, just the business knowledge, and from the configuration perspective, it is technical. Yep.
and one more thing. My expectation at the end of this class would be like I should be single-handedly able to take the client's requirement and document it and implement it and be ready for the deliverables. So at the end of the class, I mean, I should be very much into it, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that would be fine. Yes.
So I guess it's fine by my side for today's class. And maybe we need to settle down on some different timings because I'm early to bed and early to rise kind of people. So 10 is like too late for me. Uh, we
It's
can do it in the morning anytime you want.
morning. Uh,
Morning anytime you want from 6 o'clock to maybe 10, 11, whatever time you want.
okay. Fine. I'll let you know on the timing part. Morning from 6 till 8, is it? You are fine with those time, 6 till 8. Uh, okay. Okay. 6 till 12. Okay. Fine. So, okay. I'll let you know the details. I'll let you Google. So he will be managing the session. Fine. I'll.
Okay,
Okay. Fine then. We will wind up the session today. And thanks for joining me. Good night. Yeah.